From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report. I'm Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, joined by my pair of wingmen, right? Tom Campbell, our Chief Creative Officer, and James St. James, editor of the Wow Report, literary sensation, and what have you. And do you want to talk about your theft, James?
No, I'd rather just move along. I'm having a rotten day, suffice to say, and let's just have some fun and.
I don't know how to start a GoFundMe, but I will say that James St. James, through circumstances beyond his control, had all of his shoes stolen at once. Correct? You have a pair of flip-flops. James is 8.5, and he likes Prada and Gucci. Is that fair to say?
Prada, Dior, Gucci, yes. Armani, Dolce & Gabbana.
Yes.
I will take.
Shoe drive. That's it. The shoe drive. All right. Well, while the shoes are coming in, let's start our countdown of the top 10 things that make us go wow. Number 10. That means it's Tom.
Number 10.
You know, there's something so strange about when people pass, celebrities pass, and how they're around this whole time, and the moment they go away, it's somehow they bring back memories. It somehow is definitional moments in your life, even though you didn't know them. And I felt that way the moment I heard that Mac Davis passed away. Now, Mac is a lot, I work with young people. I say, you know who Mac Davis is? They're like, Mac Davis was so many things. He was a singer, songwriter, superstar of the late 60s and the 70s, and one of the sexiest men alive before people named men the sexiest men alive. Do you agree with me, James?
I do. I'm struggling right now to think of what his big hit was.
I'm here for all that. Now, Fenton, are you familiar with the Mac Davis?
I'm having a complete learning experience. Okay. Never heard of him before in my life.
It's interesting. He was considered sort of a country artist, but his songs were pop. He was born in Lubbock, Texas. He's constantly and willingly shirtless. He got hair. He's the perfect 70s. He was the non-mustachioed, sort of like, it wasn't even a perm, it was just curly hair. He had these sad eyes and this beautiful smile and tight jeans. And he wrote for Elvis. His first success was as a songwriter. And he wrote In the Ghetto for Elvis, which was a huge hit in late 69, 70, plus Memories. And some of this I know from experience, and some of this was reinforced by some stuff I read. But in the early 70s, he had moved from Lubbock, Texas to LA, living in an apartment building, just trying to make it like the rest of us. And he was at a pool party. Think of Mac Davis with the shirt off, probably a Speedo, and Sandy Gallen, the esteemed, famous manager, of
your former boss.
And one of my first jobs was at Sandy Gallen's office. He heard Mac singing at a pool party and said, "I can make you a star." And he got Clive Davis to sign him. And his big first hit as an artist was "Baby Don't Get Hooked on Me."
Oh, baby, don't get hooked on me. Yeah,
And he also had I Believe in Music. He had a whole bunch of hits, but he was that perfect 70s celebrity. He was talented. He was sincere. He was friendly. He also had a breakout role. And this will get Fenton involved. If you Google Mac Davis buttocks, you'll see a lot of it because he was in a big movie that was a huge success called North Dallas 40.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a football movie, and he kind of played Don Meredith, the fictional Don Meredith, who was a good old boy football player. And there are so many shots in the locker room, and they were so generous showing their butts and wearing bikini underwear and everything this boy needed. And it was like on HBO, every other movie in 1980. Just every other movie was North Dallas 40.
Can I ask two questions?
Yes.
One, was he gay? And two, how does he relate to Burt Reynolds? Like, what is he a comparison point?
Well, Burt Reynolds had the mustache. He didn't. And Mac was more of a singer-songwriter than he was an actor, but he did parlay that. And then he had a couple unsuccessful movies. Here's, I think, one of the most, this is my inside scoop, which is Mac Davis was signed by Sandy Gallen, and Gallen Morey, which is the name of the production management company I worked there, was Jim Morey. And Jim Morey was with Mac his whole career. Sandy has passed on, and Jim is the one who did the release and had the quotes in the obituary. And I know from it's fact because I've heard it, which is that Mac Davis, who was 1970 signed by Sandy Gallen, his biggest client, making buttloads of money in Vegas, said to Sandy, "There's this girl singer in Nashville that you should check out. She has something special to offer." And that girl singer is Dolly Parton.
Oh.
And Dolly and Sandy were partners to the very, very end until Sandy passed away a couple years ago. And again, Dolly deserves her own success. Don't get me wrong. She is the talent. But the symbiotic relationship between Sandy and Dolly, you know, they shared an apartment in New York. They were soulmates. And I really do think that, you know, I always had the feeling that there was a moment where Dolly eclipsed Mac. Sort of like Mac's career was going down. Dolly did 9 to 5. So there's this weird thing. Not that Mac wasn't relevant till the very end, and just for his Elvis stuff alone, so many things. And I'll end with this: that he wrote a song. First, he had another song you'll remember, James, called "Oh Lord, It's Hard to Be Humble,
Yeah.
Perfect in Every Way." This is the best song to sing when you're a little buzzed on beer. And second, he wrote a song. One of his last hits was called "Texas in My Rearview Mirror." And it was just one of those great songs about coming from Lubbock, Texas, and he couldn't wait to break free. He was like, you know, James Dean fan, and all he thought when he was young was getting to LA and about Lubbock, Texas, like happiness was Lubbock, Texas in my rearview mirror. And then he goes to LA and he gets, you know, pushed around and spit out, and he decides that the real truth and the real love's in Lubbock, Texas, where he's from. And the last verse is like, and I used to think that Lubbock was, you know, the happiness was Lubbock, Texas in my rearview mirror. But now happiness is Lubbock, Texas, getting nearer and nearer. And one day I'll reach my dreams, and I'll be buried in Lubbock in my jeans. And in his obituary, they said that he will be buried in his hometown of Lubbock, Texas, and he will be wearing his jeans. Mac Davis, rest in perfection.
Oh, perfect. Marvelous. Number 9, James.
Number 9.
I watched on Netflix, surprise, surprise, surprise. I watched Enola Holmes, Sherlock Holmes' little sister, starring Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things. And it also stars Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes, very dapper in his Victorian garb. His other brother is the evil Mycroft Holmes, played by Sam Claflin, who has made quite a career out of playing despicable characters. And the mother is Helena Bonham Carter. And Helena Bonham Carter has been raising Enola Holmes as this is 1894, but she's raising her as like a 21st century woke kind of girl. And she's, you know, it's a very unconventional childhood, and she's teaching her to box and to think critically and to solve mysteries. And one day, Helena Bonham Carter disappears in the middle of the night, and it's up to Enola to discover what happened to her mother and solve the mystery. And to that end, she dresses up as a boy and runs away to London, where she crosses paths with another boy who's run away, and that's Louis Partridge, who is going to be the biggest teen heartthrob I think the world has ever seen. He's absolutely perfectly suited for the role. He plays the Marquis of Tewkesbury, who someone is trying to kill him, and so he's on the run, and the two of them are on the run together to solve both of the mysteries. And of course they do it, and Sherlock Holmes pops in every once in a while. Henry Cavill doesn't have a very big part, but he's there to sort of teach her how to think critically and to solve mysteries. And it's fun, and you sort of want it to become a series, and it's perfect for 14-year-old girls. And as I'm a 14-year-old girl myself, I was able to enjoy it a lot. So yes, I had it. I sort of recommend it to family viewing everywhere.
We watched it with Nola, and we loved it. We thought it was very snappily paced, like the way she talked to the camera. She's brilliant. I didn't really speak English. I mean, right?
She's produced it, and you love the fact that a 14-year-old girl is taking control of her Hollywood career and producing her own movies and finding her own things.
She produced the movie?
Yes. So kudos to Millie Bobby Brown for that.
I thought it was really good. And Enola is an anagram of
alone. But the only I'm going to put out a trivia question right now. What is the other famous Enola?
Enola Gay.
Yes, the name of the atom bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. Yes,
that's right.
I think there was Enola on Another World or As the World Turns or something in the 70s. She was the villainess on one of the big soap operas. Henry Cavill was, he's just, I could just watch him all day. I love him so much.
I don't know if we want to get into this, but the one problem I had with it is the way that I think we try to make retro, obnoxious ideas seem okay is by giving them a modern spin. So 19th century Sherlock Holmes then was very diverse. It was all about female empowerment.
Yes.
But a lot of the caste class stratification on which the sort of appeal of the film is also built, that Downton Abbey kind of nostalgia.
Yeah.
That is inalienably rooted in awful ideas.
Right.
You can't just sort of wash it clean by just, we'll be all diverse and we'll talk the talk and we'll.
Well, there were a lot of anachronisms there where you had a black woman secretly teaching jujitsu to other women, and you think that probably wasn't happening in 1884. There was the other character who was a woman who was just driving an automobile around by herself in 1884, which is probably not accurate either. So there were things, and then they tried to give Millie Bobby Brown, that sort of 21st century wokeness that probably young girls at the time did not have. So there were there were some problematic things about it, but it's fantasy, so.
It's just me being mean-spirited. Okay, Enola Holmes on Netflix, also on Netflix, because this is basically the Netflix show. Number 8.
Number 8.
Challenger, The Final Flight, docuseries. It's 1 hours about the Challenger, the space shuttle that launched, was 86. I remember watching it. Did you guys watch it?
I watched it, yeah.
Extraordinary 73 seconds. It takes off, it launches, and then, it's interesting. I was reading a review saying, well, at least they had the taste not to show the crash. But I remember everybody saw it. We didn't know it had crashed. It was like, what happened?
Well, because you remember it was when Sally Ride was in it, and every single school in America had it on live feed and watched it at the same time. All across the country, everybody was watching.
Devastating. It was a devastating day and week. It was a week of mourning after that.
Yeah.
The teacher was called Krista McAuliffe, James.
Krista McAuliffe. Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I remember Reagan. That was slip the surly bonds of what was his famous speech that he said?
I can't remember, but he
was a good speech. We know that, right?
Yeah, it's ready to slip the surly bonds of Earth or something like that. I can't remember.
Back in the days when president could make inspiring speeches that made me feel nice.
String 3 words together.
I mean, right. I'm really getting into it. I'm only in the first episode, and it's so Netflixian in the way that you're watching the first episode, and it's about this and it's about that. And then you have someone say, well, one thing you knew, the space shuttle was always going to blow up. And then it's like, next episode in 10 seconds. They cliffhang it. But do you think you'll watch it?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I experienced it once. I don't know that I need to do it again. I mean, it was traumatic.
Yes.
But do you feel that we have a really, we knew it was the O-ring seals, but it was a long time before the washers, which I think are like basically a rubber washer. It was a long time before that came out. And I think what's driving the 4 hours is this idea that there was a NASA cover-up and that they wouldn't really admit to what was going on. I thought what was interesting is also this idea of institutional failure, because the shuttle did come back. I think it was gone for a couple of years. It came back and then went on and I think ran 86 more missions. In fact, it ran 87 missions in total. And that 87th one, which was the last one, same thing happened again. Different tragedy, but the shuttle broke up on re-entry. And that was because a piece of insulating foam broke off on takeoff and damaged the heat shield tiles. But again, it was a case of something that they knew was a problem, but they just hadn't fixed.
Well, it also makes you think that maybe space shuttles shouldn't be used 87 times. Maybe you don't do that. I don't know. We just got a message from Blake saying that it was called the pilot's. What is it? Hold on, let me see.
Reagan's speech at the time of the.
Yeah, President Reagan recited the poem known as the Pilot's Creed. And he says, "I've slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter-silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling north, sun-split clouds, and done 100 things you've not dreamed of," which is just gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Rather good, isn't it?
Yes.
All right. Well, that's the Challenger, The Final Flight on Netflix.
Can I just say one thing back to my number 10? I'm sorry. That Dolly Parton left a lovely tribute to Mac Davis and said they were best friends. And many years later, he wrote music for her, White Limousine, So I made it sound like they had some competitiveness. And I feel bad for saying that because I think they were in beautiful harmony in their life. So
let me just go back and say about Enola Gay. No, I'm kidding. I thought we were all revisiting our posts. All right.
Well, let's take a break before we get overheated.
It is hot, isn't it?
It's a hot one, people. Hey, look who's wearing a Dolly Parton t-shirt.
I'm wearing my Dolly Parton t-shirt, and I've got a question for you guys.
You can thank
Was
Matt.
it a coincidence that you're wearing Dolly Parton?
Yeah, I had no idea. So October and what other month always end on the same day of the week every year?
What?
October and what other month? Always.
That's not something that happens.
It is.
Huh.
You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy, and we'll have the answer for you right after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton Bailey here with Tom Campbell, James St. James, and Blake Jacobs, who has the most intriguing question I think we've had in some time.
We just entered October, the 10th month of the year, and October and this other month always end on the same day of the week every year.
But how to do that, you would have to start on the same day every year at the same. In order for it to work out, you have to have the same amount of days in every month, but you have to sort of start on the same day to end on the same, don't you?
Now, James, listen, I don't claim to be a scientist. I just found this on the internet.
And what about leap years? Because that introduces another element.
I'm going to say that the answer is April.
I'll say June, but I don't even believe any of this.
I'm going to go with March because why not?
It's February.
Oh, so close.
Why? How does February, even with leap year, that would be 4 extra days? You can't have the same amount of.
Is there an explanation, Blake?
I don't have an explanation, but let me.
Okay. Next week, let's take a look. Let's take it next week. Well, it'll be all about this next week in the Wow.
I am intrigued.
Calendar, everything you wanted to know. Days of the week, months of the year, solar cycles, blah, blah, blah. I guess if you're an astronaut, that's the sort of thing you have to learn, right? Yeah. All right, let's go on. Number 7.
Number 7.
It's another rest in peace moment for me, and James seems to be more invested in this one.
This really. It was the same day, and this one had me in tears.
Same day as Mac Davis. They were both 78-year-olds. Helen Reddy went to heaven. Tell me, Fenton Bailey, that you know who Helen Reddy is.
I sort of do. She was a singer, right?
Helen had was an amazing force in the 70s, same as Mac Davis. Like they sort of helped define like this sort of the pop singing, easy listening 70s. Her, she had her first single was Andrew Lloyd Webber's "I Don't Know How to Love Him," which she did.
I don't know how to love.
Yes, I know that.
And so Capitol Records signed her, and she had to come up. And this is 1972, 1973, and Women's Lib was just happening, and Ms. Magazine was just opening, and Roe versus Wade just passed, and she wanted a song that she said she had to write because she couldn't find it. And she and a pal wrote "I Am Woman."
I am woman, hear me roar.
And numbers too big
to ignore.
And that was a smash hit, an anthem for a generation.
She went down and she's in history. She actually said when she stopped singing for a while, she said, I'm in the history books. I can't top myself.
Yeah. She there is a biopic of her that came out that's Australian that I haven't seen yet, but came out while she was still alive this year, which we can all watch and get the details. But what I remember as a child, and I was 10 years old, at the Grammy Awards that year, she won for Best Pop Female Vocalist. And she got up there and she was very charming with her. She's very beautiful and very charming with her Australian accent. She goes, "I want to thank everyone at Capitol Records. I want to thank Jeff Wald, her husband, the manager, who makes my career possible. And I want to thank God, because she makes all things possible." And that blew my mind. I talk about.
I think people were throwing things at the TV all around the country,
and I was enlightened. Like, oh my God, God could be a woman, and it got picked up by all the news channels. And again, from such a and she would go on to be considered such a white prim, compared to rock stars and soul stars. She was a very clean cut gal, but
I one time drove cross country from New York to LA with nothing but a Carpenter's and a Helen Reddy, best of Helen Reddy CD. And I can sing every song on the, let's just go through them very quick, because she was sort of in that same Carpenter's class.
And I want to say that Helen Reddy's Greatest Hits was my first album ever.
So good. So amazing. Angie Baby, one of the scariest songs of all time. If you listen to the words of Angie Baby.
She covered and had a huge hit with Tanny Tucker's Delta Dawn.
Delta Dawn, what's that flower you have on?
Old Robey red dress.
That ain't no way to treat a lady, no way to treat your baby.
And, I mentioned how Mac Davis had those prophetic lyrics. She had a song that I think Paul Williams wrote called You and Me Against the World.
You and Me Against the World.
It's a song for her daughter, and it's so sappy but so meaningful. And she goes, and when one of us is gone and one of us is left to carry on, then remembering we'll have to do. Our memories alone will get us through. Think of all the days of me and you and me against the world.
But then, of course, she also had Pete's Dragon. She starred in Disney's Pete's Dragon, and she had a great song from Pete's Dragon.
I'll be your candle on the water.
Yes.
Until it passes, Fenton, you don't realize what a deep part of your brain they occupy. And then I was flipping around. The one last thing, she also played the nun in Airport 75 that sings to the dying Linda.
Why didn't you start with that?
About burying the lead.
Now I know who you mean.
Yes.
She, my mother and her had the same haircut. She had that sort of Mrs. Brady haircut, the little shag. Yes, and she was very famous for that. And
RuPaul told me that Greatest Hits cover with that picture with the shag, that beautiful picture, was a Scavullo photograph.
Oh.
Does that make sense? Anyway.
He died on the same day as Mac Davis and was the same age as Mac Davis. Isn't that crazy?
Yes. And there's a picture of them, because I think Mac Davis had his own variety show for a while. They both did. And there's a great picture going around the internet of them just in all of their glory. And I captured it sunrise, sunset, because they were the perfect specimens of 70s beauty and style.
Rest in power, Helen Reddy. This show is becoming a bit of an obituary show. Like, it seems that every week more people have died.
It's true. And I'm just the wrong age, I guess. And I don't be like, 2020, it's just people pass. And there's so many famous people that we've had the pleasure of enjoying their beautiful talent. So,
I think we've said this on the show before, that it's been said that it's not until you're 45 years old that you start to read the obituaries, because that's when the people from your childhood are starting to pass away.
Right. Well, let's hope the next people are alive. Number 6, James.
Number 6.
Oh my God! I started watching Pen 15 on Hulu. Do you guys know Pen 15?
Which it spells out to look like penis, right?
It looks like penis. Yes, PEN 15, and it's
I've heard a few things about it, but I have not watched it. So fill me in.
Well, we talked about it on this show when Edward was filling in for Tom one time, and Edward is a huge fan of the show and was trying to get us to watch it. And I finally broke down and watched it, and it's what's known as a cringe comedy, and it's a cringe comedy because you are so uncomfortable in every moment. It is so upsetting and disturbing. It's this two 30-something-year-old women are playing 7th graders with a cast of actual 12-year-olds. So there is these old women, not old, but older women, and they're pretending, with the braces and the pigtails and the greasy hair and the zits, and they're pretending to be, 7th graders. And their names are Maya Erskine and Anna Conkle, who are the writers of the show as well. And it's hysterical, but it's so disturbing, and you realize that you never want to go back to 7th grade because the kids are just nasty, alternately like horrifically devil children and dorks. Like you go back and forth so quickly between the two, and the whole premise of the show. Do you watch it, Blake?
I do watch it. I had to break in. The one episode that I sat and watched the whole thing. Actually, I haven't watched a lot of them. I've watched a couple of episodes, but Laura Keitlinger happened to be on the episode that I watched. They go to an old people's home and they're doing a fashion show for the old people. Laura Keitlinger is like the mom who is in control of the show and directing it. Well, the girls decide they're going to go visit one of the girls' grandmothers in her room, but there's not enough room for all of us. So Maya and Anna, you have to stay back, because they're just being bitches. Well, Maya and Anna go through the main girl's bag and find her pink thong. And they end up swapping the pink thong back and forth for days because they feel so sexy in it, and they put it on and grind in the mirror. And it's so funny.
So many, like there's an episode where one of them discovers masturbation, and there's one where they smoke a cigarette for the first time, and there's one where like they're like going after these boys, and the boys are like actual 12-year-olds, and it's so cringy and upsetting, and I can't watch it anymore. I did like 4 episodes, and like I was screaming the entire time. So I've given it up. The second season just dropped, and people are going bananas for it. But unless you have a high tolerance for this type of thing, yeah.
Question: 2 things. It's a cringe comedy. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, that's what they call it. Yeah,
that is what I can now call my life. I'm looking forward to that on my tombstone. My life is a cringe comedy. I'm having fun. This is cringeworthy. And second, this popped to my mind, and it's totally inappropriate to talk about. But did you ever find yourself getting spontaneous boners in junior high?
Oh, yeah.
You have to cover your crotch with your books as you walk down the hall.
Yes. Well, the worst would happen and they'd say, "Now get up to the blackboard and do something," and you'd be like, "No, I don't."
Wasn't even thinking about it. Your body was just like hormones.
But anyway, so Pen 15, season 2. I wish someone else would watch it and come back and tell me.
Pass.
Yes. Wait, hold on. Let me.
Number 5.
Oh my gosh, everything's gone upside down. Topsy-turvy.
We're seeing a different view of James's apartment.
I know.
Wait.
I thought it was just an alley, and he had like that backdrop. I'm glad to see actually it's inside.
Hand away from the book wallpaper.
Yeah, right.
Number 5.
Number 5.
How to Be Yourself from Simon Doonan. Wow, celebrity, very famous as the creative director of Barney's for many a decade, and a best-selling author. He's written a book about drag. I think, what was the name of his first book?
He did the window dresser, Confessions of a Window Dresser. He also did Eccentric Women, in which he profiled like Diane Brill and Suzanne Barsh and people like that. Yes.
Brilliant, incredibly funny writer. Grew up in Reading, England, not far from where I went to school, though we never knew each other. Our paths never crossed. He was very trendy, very groovy, and is partnered with, of course, Jonathan Adler, the ceramicist and interior designer whose style j'adore, because they
have you seen the images of their apartment in New York?
Oh my God, I've been in their apartment in New York, which is unbelievable. But then, if you really want to get your knickers in a twist, look at their place on Shelter Island. It is it's sickening. It's disgusting. But this book is really good. He wrote it's a self-help book, and he wrote it because he feels that social media is giving people terrible advice. He says everywhere you turn there's life-affirming quotes and what have you. And he says it's a fatal mistake to follow your dreams. He's like, that is ridiculous. He says dreams are like real life, but with better furniture. Or, dream. Why do you want to follow your dreams? Why do you want your dreams to come true? He says, focus on yourself in the now. Life is not a dress rehearsal for Instagram moments yet to come. So he's and it's life-changing advice from a reckless contrarian. And he talks about style. For example, Tom Wolfe in the white suit. I didn't know this, but Tom Wolfe wore a white suit, and he wore it after September, because the white suit that he ordered, I guess, was too hot to wear in the summer. So he wore it in the winter. And he found that really annoyed people. And he found my look is an acceptable act of aggression, he says.
Oh, that's funny. I never knew that.
And Elsie DeWolf, the woman who is she's
Sure.
famous for beige.
Yeah.
And she basically invented interior design, right, as a profession. She apparently saw the Parthenon and said, "It's just my color." It's full of lots of little things like that. He says he's got a whole chapter on people, which begins, social anxiety is the new athlete's foot, which is kind of good because social media, he's thinking, is making everybody very anxious and incapable of interacting with each other. James, do you know what he's also got? You know, what's so great about Simon is that everything he writes is kind of like in another language. He's like a drag queen of words, right? He kind of dresses them up. And he talks about I think he's most famous for Zhoosh, SZHOOSH, Zhoosh something up. That's his.
Which is what Carson Kressley made famous later. Yes.
Okay. And then I also learned, because there's a glossary which you do sometimes need to refer to understand what on earth he's saying. Do you know what an Irish exit is, James?
When you're drunk and you pass out.
It's like
No, it's when you leave a party without telling anyone that you're going.
Oh, I do that all the time.
I do that all the time too. Yes.
Yeah, Michael also taught me to do that. You make a big fuss when you walk in and then you creep out.
Right, you just disappear. Anyway, it's really good. It's only 145 pages long, and it's like sort of postcard size book. So that is how to be yourself. The thing I love about it also, perhaps the most, is the stripes. Yeah, I've got my look, because he's big.
Aren't you?
Yeah, he's like, get your look and stick with it, you know? So, like Edith Head, right? It's all stripy. You can get that on Amazon. Blake, you got a question?
I do. Today is this arresting singer's 69th birthday. Perhaps he'll celebrate all night with his actress/film producer wife. Who is he?
69. Okay.
We'll be right back after the break. You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hey, welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake. And what was the question, Blake?
Today is this arresting singer's 69th birthday. Perhaps he'll be celebrating all night with his actress/film producer/director wife. Who is he?
Well, okay. The clues there are arresting, all night, and wife. So the only thing I can think of is all night long, Lionel Richie, but that doesn't seem right.
No.
So
Roxanne.
Oh, of course. My great
Sing.
yeah.
Sting is 69?
Yeah.
And he looks good.
He does
Because
look
of the
good.
tantric sex he has with Trudy Styler, his wife, right?
Yes, Trudy,
That
my
was-
love, my great mentor.
That was the all night clue.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Counting down the top 10 things that made us go, wow, we've reached number 4.
Number 4.
I have been watching, if it's not Netflix, it's Turner Classic Movies for me. And they've had concert films on all September, so I'm a little late on this. But and there was one that stood out to me that I finally watched, and it's called Elvis, That's the Way It Is. And it was a 1970 documentary. He had just stopped making films. He made something like 64 films from 1957 to 1969. Each film made money, and they cost about $1.5 million to make, and they grossed billions of dollars in the 60s. So that's just a mind-blowing fact. And so in 68, he had that big comeback concert where you see him in the black leather. It was on NBC. And this was sort of the next media thing about him singing. And it starts off with sort of rehearsals behind the scenes on the MGM lot where he was the huge star and made billions of dollars. And his El Dorado, his tight, it's the beginning of the jumpsuit, and he's still thin and lithe. He's got lamb chops that look like lamb chops, big untethered, sideburns, and his hair dyed black, and it's moppy. It's not, it's just there wasn't the hyper hyper gloss to celebrities yet. I mean, he was as beautiful as they come, but like
he was a sweaty pig sometimes. By the end of every show,
yeah. But and also his show, which they eventually get to the International Hotel in Vegas, which no longer exists, which is fabulous.
Because I've seen this and I know the thing. And when you see the audience and the stars that are in the audience, and you just gasp at this like gathering of like Marlena Dietrich and like just stars.
Yes, and Cary Grant and Sammy Davis Jr.
Yes, Cary Grant is in the audience. Can you imagine?
Juliette Prowse dropped by.
Yes.
Xavier Cugat and Mrs. Xavier Cugat, who it was Charo.
Very young Charo. And the camera just goes to them, and they're just sitting there smoking and drinking and eating a meatloaf.
In a red booth, a theater that looks just like RuPaul's Drag Race Live at the Flamingo. They may have just moved the theater to the Flamingo. But Elvis.
Wait a minute, and I just want to say that the one thing, my big takeaway from it was how charming and funny he is with his friends and backstage. And you think Elvis, and you hear the horror stories, and you hear the all that. Yeah. He was just a good old boy who was just having fun, and no matter he's so the charm and the charisma there.
Exactly,
it just bowls you over.
And there's no pyrotechnics during his performance. There's no, but it's pure showmanship and pure charisma and pure personality. And it's funny because as handsome as Elvis is, and he's probably one of the most handsome men that's ever walked the face of the earth, he doesn't make me tingle down there, in between me down there. But he is still just so, and he sings his own songs, a medley of his hits, which at that point were 10, 15 years old, Hound Dog, which are amazing. But it's also, he sang, and coincidence or not, In the Ghetto, which is the song that Mac Davis wrote for him, which I'd listened to a few nights before he passed away. And he also did covers of You Don't Have to Say You Love Me, Just Stay Close at Hand. And he does Bridge Over Troubled Water. And it's just like, but again, there was kind of bloaty Elvis by 76, 77. This is perfect Elvis, just the consummate interpreter of the American song. He barely sings also some of the songs he's a little sick of singing. And that song, he chooses to kiss all the women.
Yeah,
and you know how you get like
the line, and you think in COVID, this era of COVID, you just like you high. Yes,
it's first of all, just to see an audience makes you guilty, and now, but he kisses them on the mouth. He is like, so what a time. Oh, to be Elvis. And again, I not that I've underestimated him, but he's a powerhouse to see in his prime and even in his late prime. And the other thing I will just say, to go on YouTube, if you're not going to watch, you can watch this thing on YouTube. But another song that Mac Davis wrote for Elvis was called A Little Less Conversation, which became
a little more action.
But one of his last movies, called like Love a Little, Live a Little, very heavy movie, is just a music video, the scene from the movie, of Elvis picking up a girl, putting a fur coat over her long hair, and getting her out of there and bringing her back to his house. A little less conversation, a little more action. So give yourself a 3-minute favor and watch that video on YouTube. Thank you. Sorry.
I will. That's amazing. Thank you.
Number 3.
Number 3, Call Me Ishmael. I am reading Moby Dick, Herman Melville's 1851 novel. I have decided that I am in lockdown. It's time to start tackling bucket list items. I had decided when we first started in March that I was going to get a body. I was going to work out every day. I was going to write 3 books. I was going to do this. I was going to do that. And I haven't done any of them. And so this week I said, by God, the least I can do is tackle some of those big books that you're supposed to read before you die.
So you're actually going to read your 10th grade reading list for real this time. Got it.
And, when I was 25, I had a job, I think I've told you, where I worked in a shoe store, a high-end shoe store where nobody ever went into, and days would pass, and I would just sit there on the couch, and I was able to read Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Chekhov, all of Lord of the Rings, all of Sherlock Holmes. I managed to do, and I did Sound and the Fury. I did a bunch of Faulkner, which is very hard to get through at 25. And so I've decided now, I'm 54, I'm going to do Moby Dick, which is 100,000 pages if it's a page. And but the thing about it is once you get into the cadence and the rhythm of 18th century seafaring jargon,
Sure.
Easy for you.
Once you master that, it goes very fast. The chapters are sometimes 1 or 2 pages long, and it actually sounds very contemporary to your ear. It can be very funny at times. There's some homoerotic moments with the sailors on the whaler. It's the story of Ishmael, and he's talking about how he's on a whaling boat with the crazy Captain Ahab, who is obsessed with catching this white whale, Moby Dick. And yes, there are 50-page long diatribes about the smell of whale blubber as it's being, made into tallow, and you have 100 pages about different fishing lures, and it does go on and on a bit. But I'm happy to say that it's not as hard as you think it is, and I sort of suggest everybody to do a book club with me and read Moby Dick.
Are you actually reading the text, or is it a book on tape?
No, I have it on my Kindle. So, and that's a good thing because Kindle doesn't have the page numbers. And I think if I had the page numbers, I would start to get depressed after only being, 1/100th of the way through.
What page number are you on? That's my question.
I'm on the 10th chapter. I started yesterday. And so and like I said, the chapters are very short. So you can do like a chapter before bed every night for the rest of your life.
Maybe a weekly installment every week, a little update.
When I was a kid, I decided I was going to read the Bible, and I don't think I got past the first few chapters of Genesis.
I actually read the Bible when I was 25 too. I spent 3 months starting from Genesis to Revelation. And I'm glad I did it because I have a basis when people start talking about, I can argue Bible lore.
In other words, an abomination when you see an abomination.
Yes. And we could do a whole thing on the Bible because there are some stories in there that are just so batshit that let's
do a Bible episode sometime.
I love that. Top 10 things that make us go, holy moly, from the Bible. I love that. We'll do that. It'll be evergreen.
It'll be our last show ever.
All right. Number two, moving on. Number two. The Real Story of Paris Hilton. Documentary on YouTube. It's called This is Paris. The official documentary is directed by Alexandra Dean, who directed the Hedy Lamarr documentary Bombshell, which I think, James, you talked about.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Paris is a bit of an enigma. Or, what did Truman Capote say about Warhol? A sphinx without a secret. She's obviously a legendary figure. She's still extraordinarily beautiful. She's got that gorgeous voice. And there's something sort of unknowable about her. Now, I have to admit, full disclosure, I was watching the documentary and I just got fed up with it. And about an hour in, I turned it off. Apparently, I turned it off before all the good stuff, because I think the whole point of the documentary is that she was abused, and I haven't got to
Utah, Provo, yeah.
So
we start to explain things a little bit that she shut down, perhaps not that I know what I'm talking about. But
by the same token, with Paris, she will give you something every time the world starts to turn its attention away. All of a sudden, she has a new revelation to reel you back in, and you begin to wonder how much of it is calculated to how much of the revelations, like, why didn't she tell us these things 20 years ago when, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what to do with her.
But Oprah used to do the same thing.
I guess we all do too. I mean, to certain extent.
I think it takes a long time. I think there's been a whole culture of recognizing abuse and owning abuse. And I think a few courageous souls have come forward, and many courageous people have then been able to find the strength to come out with their stories. And I do think it takes many years for people sometimes to come through about it. Even so, even though I got fed up and turned it off halfway through, and I am going to watch the rest of it, there is something extraordinarily watchable about her and compelling about her. It's like in a way, to me, she's like liquid Valium. I have no idea what Valium's like. I've never had it. But just imagine liquid Valium is just very like drinking anesthetic or what is that? Propofol or something. She's like a drink. And
excuse me, Fenton. James, what's liquid Valium like?
Well, I mean, it's not.
I'm sorry, Fenton. Continue.
But wait, I do want to say though that with Paris, the thing about her is she is genuinely wonderful to her fans and genuinely a nice person. And every time I've ever met her, I don't know how many times you guys, she remembers your name. She comes in for the hug. She whispers in your ear and gives you her full attention. And I think everybody who meets her walks away saying the same thing, that she is, for as fake as she is, or people claim to be, she is a genuine person.
No, I don't think that, and it's funny you say that because I don't think she's taken so much stick over the years. I don't think she's fake at all. I think
No.
she's ordinarily genuine and maybe a little like Edie Sedgwick. She gets projected onto her all sorts of expectations that she then gets attacked for failing to deliver on. But,
it's Warholian, where she is a cipher and people put onto her whatever they want to take out of her, you know.
I do recommend you watching it, even though I'm only halfway through. It's The Real Story of Paris Hilton. It's on YouTube, 13 million views so far. And I'd love to know what you think, really. Let's take a break. I'll just say before we go, Drag Race Holland is on WoW Presents Plus right now. Worldwide, except for the Netherlands. So sign up for WoW Presents Plus at wowpresentsplus.com. All right? When we come back after the break, the number one thing this week that made us go, wow. Okay, you're listening to the WoW Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders WoW Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hey, we're back. It's the WoW Report on Radio Andy. I'm here with Tom and James. We've been doing our usual thing, counting down the top 10 things that made us go wow. There's one thing left to reveal.
I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can go back there.
I'm going to say it.
Number 1.
2 weeks ago, we were talking about Schitt's Creek because of the Emmys. This week, we're talking about the shit show that was the presidential debate. I got to say, I didn't watch much of it live because I felt like I was having some kind of seizure while watching it. literally. But I did sort of read the Twitter as it went along, and I got the gist of what happened. And to me, and forgive my French, but the president, Donald Trump, shit in the pool. And Donald Trump always shits in the pool and ruins it for everyone. And I know there's a lot of criticism of Wallace, the moderator, but there's the president of the United States shitting in the pool. And, whatever you say about Joe Biden's response, which I thought was quite stealth considering the circumstances, he was sitting next to someone who had just, forgive my French, shit in the pool. And that,
it's disingenuous.
Donald Trump was, his goal that day, as it is every day, in my opinion, is to cause chaos and to take away and degrade the democracy that we know. And that's
as Napoleon once said, chaos is the stepping stone to power. And so that's exactly what he does. He sows that. I think it's disingenuous for Chris Wallace to say, "Oh, it got away from me. I can't imagine." Blah blah blah. When what he knew, he's been at Fox News. He's interviewed Trump 100 times. He knows what to expect. Everyone knew what to expect, and the only way to stop it is to cut the microphone and put them into soundproof boxes like they did on $64,000 Question or whatever it was.
Kelly Ripa broke, usually they stay very apolitical in that show, and I understand why, but she broke her silence and just said, it's not turning out the microphone. They need to be on video like this, soundproof basically, and turn off the mic, because if that thing is yabbering in your ear, and I just thought, good for you, Kelly, for stepping up and saying something. Fenton, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
No, I think shitting in the pool is absolutely perfect. I thought it was a sort of historic moment, actually, right after Jake Tapper says, that was a dumpster fire in a train wreck inside a whatever it was. But then one of his co-hosts, she said, no, it was a shit show. They actually just said on CNN it was a shit show, and it was the most inexcusable and appalling, horrific thing.
But we went through this 4 years ago,
This is the thing, people act like some of the reports act surprised. Oh, we saw Trump as we'd never. You know,
No.
this man has been a malevolent fucker ever since the day practically he was born.
Unfortunately, what happens is that there's no way to decide who won because his base thinks, oh, you owned it. You know,
No one swam. There wasn't a race. He shit in the pool. He ruined it for
but
everyone.
his fans think that he won. If you go onto
They're not.
Republican
They're not.
Twitter.
I
I went over to Fox afterwards, and they were like, he pulled himself up by the bootstraps, and he confronted his bullies, and he was that, and they spun it that he came out as a winner, and people think that he won.
Yeah, I thought it was the thing that came through for me most of all was that this was actually, it was like watching domestic abuse. It was like watching a spouse beat up the other spouse. And I think Joe Biden was amazing and extraordinarily restrained, given how Trump was baiting him by mocking his son who's passed away. I mean, just horrible, inexcusable stuff.
And what he was doing, he was trying to get a rise out of him to get him to start to stutter, and that was what he was trying to do. That. It's inexcusable, and disgusting.
Can I leave us on a happy note?
Yes.
$750. I'm gonna post that every day to the election.
Yeah.
I know, because he paid $700. Something better about zero. He paid no taxes is less insulting than he paid $750 in taxes. And the release of the income tax, the fact that he's a huge. I get the big picture, but I just think $750. Next time you write down your income tax check, it's going to be more than $750 if you're a school teacher.
Well, I know. I have to pay my taxes this month, and I'm going to offer $750 and see if they take it.
Yeah.
That's a great idea for a protest. Everybody, the next time everybody files their taxes, they should just pay $750.
Yeah.
And even the undocumented workers who work at Mar-a-Lago pay more than $750 in taxes. And I just find that
unfortunately, one of the other things that happened with the debates is it took away from that story. And I think nobody's talking about the $750.
Not on my Facebook
he knew what he was doing. He does that every single time.
There is something extraordinarily satisfying about $750. Also compelling within that story is the fact that he is $300 million to $500 million in debt, which obviously makes him, given that no bank will lend him any money, and given the fact that these loans are coming due, a security threat. Because what won't he do for which country to get the money to pay off the debt? I mean, the only place this person belongs is in a jail cell for the rest of his life. And I think, in a way, that would even be too good for him. So,
yeah, but he's gonna walk. It's just it's the way of the world.
Same time, same place next week. Until
$750.
do something that makes the world go wow.
Mwah.